tell everybody they're safe. I think our citizens are safe. I think my drinking water is safe. Everybody that came here expects a hell of a lot more than what we're getting right now.
We're at the town hall meeting here in East Palestine, where hundreds, if not thousands, of residents have gathered to ask their questions. They've basically forced the mayor into having this targeted town hall.
Many of people outside of 1 mile radius are being affected by this and not getting help because we're not in 1 mile radius.
It's been almost 2 weeks since a freight train derailed in this small Ohio town, spilling hazardous chemicals and igniting a fire that burned for days. This is the first time officials are directly addressing residents about what happened. Norfolk Southern, the company that owns the train, was supposed to be here.
It took 2 weeks for them to finally talk about this. And all the news networks and the federal government and everyone is just brushing it under the rug. No one wants to talk about it.
Here too. But at the last minute.
In fact, the secretary of the Department of Transportation is on 8 weeks vacation, and he won't talk about this or do any talk to any journalists or go on to do any interviews.
They bailed.
There was reports that they were scared for their safety before they got here. There's police everywhere here. Why we're scared too? Why can't we get in?
I will get your question. We will respond to you. I will ask that question on your behalf.
The train derailed on February 3rd at 8:54 p.m. It was carrying 20 cars of hazardous materials, including vinyl chloride, a highly flammable toxic gas that causes central nervous system problems and has been linked to a host of cancers.
You have not evacuated. Please leave the area.
In the days after the accident, Norfolk Southern worried the vinyl chloride could explode, so they did a controlled burn, potentially releasing phosgene, a gas used as a chemical.
They're worried it's gonna explode, so they drilled holes in the side of the train cars, it leaked it, and then they exploded it themselves.
Warfare agent in World War I. Videos soon spread widely from residents who were afraid and unsure of what they'd been exposed to.
It still smells like a chlorine and leaves like a bad taste in your throat.
Many reported rashes, sore throats, nausea, headaches, and respiratory problems, as well as seeing sick animals and water covered in a chemical sheen.
There's no way that's safe.
It stinks in here. Oh my God. I noticed the smell right away. I can smell a cleaner smell.
Zsuzsa Jenes lived less than a mile from the derailment.
But don't worry, the water's
This is the
safe.
first time she's been back home to let independent contractors hired by Norfolk Southern test the air for any harmful chemicals still lingering. The company has been working with the EPA to run these tests and has cleared over 550 homes in the area.
It smells like a chemical concoction in here. I'm literally dizzy.
Okay.
No, I would not come back in here. Mm-mm. Not like this.
This is going to be your copy. We had non-detections of VOC throughout the whole house.
What would you attribute that smell to? Because I know damn well that was not a normal smell that we have in the house.
Smell is... I'm not sure exactly what it could be. A lot of homes are different.
Even though her home was deemed safe, Jenes plans to keep staying at a hotel 20 miles outside of town, where she brought her 9-year-old son Maddox after the night of the accident.
About 3 in the morning, I thought I was losing my mind. I thought I started smelling something. I started getting a pretty bad headache. I started getting really dizzy. I felt nauseous. My eyes were burning, my nose was burning, my throat was burning. Not even 5 to 10 minutes later, I heard a sound, and I said, I think that was Maddox. So when I walked in there, he was shaking really bad, like violently shaking, kind of tremors, like not just a little bit, it was like bad. And he was projectile vomiting across the floor. And he was saying, I need water, I can't breathe. And then his eyes looked like he didn't know what was going on. He looked so scared. And I said, we gotta go. We gotta get out of here.
What kind of answers are you hoping to hear? What kind of information do you feel like you need?
I'd just like to see a lot more transparency with just local and state governments directing people, giving us assistance. Right now they're saying, oh, our team said they didn't test anything in the air. Well, let's talk about the soil. Let's talk
These people are just sick of being lied to all the time.
about this residue. Why are people getting sick if it's fucking safe? Why are they getting sick?
You don't believe it?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I definitely don't trust Norfolk or the team that they hired. I don't think they should have been given the ability to hold the reins on the narrative.
James Vabizak, a toxicologist who studies chemical exposures, says residents are right to remain skeptical. Some of these residents are being told, it's safe to come back, we've tested your air, and you should have no concerns, you can come back in. Some of them are distrustful of that information.
Right. That's an obvious distrust. We don't really know what chemicals are left in the ground that may migrate over time to eventually contaminate a person's well or affect a child playing in that.
And the problem with these chemicals is that this kind of stuff, it's not like something you eat and it just passes through you and comes out, right? Like you can eat junk food. There's plenty of people that eat junk food all day long and they're fine, okay? Plenty of my friends do that. But the problem with these chemicals is that this stuff gets into your fat, it gets into your organs, right? And that stuff doesn't just pass through you. It stays in your system for a very long time. And you don't know if it's going to have health complications until like maybe 10, 20 years down the line when you just suddenly you have liver cancer and you're like, oh, well, and nobody can explain it. And they're not going to trace it back to this event. And you're not going to win some lawsuit for 20 years ago because no one's going to be able to prove that.
Vicinity on that ground. So if we don't know what the chemical is that we should be concerned about, then it's very hard to predict what the sort of long-term effects might be.
Would you move back if you were in one of these homes and you were told it was safe?
That would depend. If I had a young child or if my wife was pregnant, that might put another level of what I'm going to do about this.
So no.
But by the same token, I need to also consider what my resources are. I mean, can I really afford to spend a week or two more in a hotel and not be in my home? Maybe I work in that town. Do I really have the opportunity to leave my job? Do I have another place or not have another place to stay?
These are bad choices, though.
They are bad choices. I mean,
you're saying if you have the option to get out, get out. And the problem is, I highly doubt all these poor folks in the middle of nowhere. I mean, what's in Ohio? East Palestine, Ohio. I doubt many of them have the options of getting out of there.
Or at least they're not choices that people would like to be able to make, right? 5 rail cars of vinyl chloride is significant. And how much vinyl chloride is left in the ground? That's the big question. That would be a question that if I was living there, I would want to know.
That answer could be a long time coming.
I'm looking forward to answering questions.
Just one quick question.
We're just going to run in and get
2 weeks after the derailment, the first cabinet member finally arrived in East Palestine, alongside state and local officials, in an attempt to reassure
making his hair fall out.
For those areas that we have deemed safe, we believe that because the science and the data proves that. But that is not to discount any experience that any resident is having.
Is there a plan for long-term testing for people who are worried that they might not be having health effects right now, but something might show up in 5-10 years? Is there a plan to continue monitoring this area?
So there's 2 phases. This is the emergency phase. We are, as we speak, working on the long-term remediation plan. That will include a sampling plan for surface water, for drinking water, for air, all of the things that you're talking about, and for soil as well.
The wreck in East Palestine was just one of more than 1,000 derailments that happen every year.
What?
Less of an accident than a
There's 3 derailments a day? What?
tragic inevitability. Workers say there's a direct line from these incidents to the aggressive ways railroads have slashed costs, largely through a method known as precision scheduled railroading. PSR is supposed to be about maximizing efficiency by reducing how much time trains spend sitting in the rail yard. But in practice, railroad employees have told Vice News it's led to longer trains, fewer inspections, and smaller, more overworked crews. Norfolk Southern, which made a record $3 billion in profit last year, implemented PSR in 2019. It also successfully lobbied against new safety procedures for certain trains carrying hazardous materials.
Of course.
Scott Wilcox was a locomotive engineer for Norfolk Southern for 18 years before he retired in July.
The railroad's a tough place to work to start with. It's demanding. You're on call 24/7, 365. It seemed like the last several years that things got worse. It all had to do with this precision scheduled railroading that they came up with a few years ago, cutting jobs, cutting costs, doing everything they can to save a dollar.
How did you feel like it changed the environment?
It made it a lot more stressful, hostile at times. The railroad, probably 100 years ago, came up with safety first. When precision scheduled railroading came out, they gave us a list of priorities that we were to work by. Safety's fourth.
What came ahead of safety?
The almighty buck. Efficiency. Not delaying trains
Efficiency
to do
first, baby.
things that should have been done. With the cuts in staffing, there's fewer car inspectors. It used to be the car inspectors would have 5 to 8 minutes to inspect a car. Now they're down to something like 30 seconds a car.
From 5 to 8 minutes to 30 seconds?
Jesus.
And if they're taking too long, they hear about it.
So the company was
They're just speed running the inspection.
prioritizing
Boom, 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 boom.
profits over safety
Yes.
in your experience?
Yes. If we're gonna get a handle on situations like this in East Palestine, safety's got to be first.
It's really hitting you hard.
I'm a safety guy. So, yeah, it does hit me hard. Take steps to start doing things in a safe manner that we used to do. And quit worrying about the damn money.
Norfolk Southern told Vice News it's invested hundreds of millions of dollars in new technology to improve rail safety. The company also said it was, quote, committed to doing what's right for the residents of East Palestine and has contributed more than $6 million to the community in response to this disaster. On Tuesday, the Biden administration announced Norfolk Southern would be responsible for the entire cost of the cleanup, a process that could take months.
Time and money are tight, but I don't feel safe to.
Yeah, leave it up to the company that cut all these costs and caused the train wreck in the first place, because they don't care about safety. Leave it up to them to handle the cleanup. Okay.
Go back. I don't even know where to go.
You won't go back to that house.
I would never sleep at night knowing that it could be worse because I made it worse because I brought him back there. I want him to have a normal life. I don't want to keep being involved of like wondering, is it safe to stand in this rain right now? Can I let him splash in that puddle? Like, I don't want to have to be questioning everything every day.
Honestly, video was kind of mid. I think there was a lot more news out there that you'd have to track down that makes it seem a lot worse than it is, or at least a lot worse than how they reported it. I think they took a very lukewarm approach into like the whole situation.